here's some questions to ponder. What does it mean to learn? How do our dispositions toward learning impact how we learn? So if we have certain dispositions, how do they actually influence our learning behaviors? And then if we want students to have certain kinds of dispositions, what do they need to learn in order to have those dispositions? All right, so developing powerful learning dispositions, the role of emotions. I want you to think for a minute about your most positive learning experience. Try and picture it, visualize it, get a sense of it. Your most powerful learning experience. Everybody have a picture in their head? Okay. List at least three words that describe your most powerful positive learning experience. Jot them down. All right? Now think about your most powerful negative learning experience. And try and call it up and visualize it, because the visualization is a really important part of this process. So visualize a negative learning experience that was really powerful. And list at least three words that describe this. So now that you visualize your negative learning experience, think about three words you would use to describe that. And at the end, you should have two lists, one that says positive learning experiences and one that says negative learning experiences, with at least 6 words, 3 on each side. What I'd like you to do now is share your words with a neighbor and see if your words are similar or different. It's interesting, this really got a buzz going in the room. So I'm wondering how many of us had similar kinds of words for our experiences. So what words did you use to describe your experiences? Could you categorize them? Were there any similarities between the positive and negative? All right. How many of you use words related to emotions? I see. Yeah? We can recall negative and positive experiences just by getting that emotion going. You can trigger the experiences just by focusing on the emotions. And then the other interesting thing to think about is you can describe your learning experience as either being a doorway or a wall, right? That something stops you from learning and ever doing it again, because I bet there are people in this room that were happy to never take another math class, right? And yet you're here and we thank you. But the doorway is when something's positive, when you're feeling good, when your emotions are in that way, you want to keep doing it. And so it's something to think about how our emotions play into what we do and how we do it. There's been some research done by Ron Richard. I don't know if people know his research, but he's from Project Zero at Harvard. And he writes a lot about dispositions, and if we want children to have good thinking dispositions, we have to pay attention to the role of emotions. And I'll tell you a story. I was working in a school for gifted kids. We were in a 7th grade class, and we gave them a really challenging math problem. And we gave it to them because we wanted to see what they would do with struggle and how they would identify their emotions. So we had them work on their own, and before they talked to a neighbor, we stopped and we said, we'd like you to share out, what are you feeling now? And no one raised their hands. And you could tell by their faces, their body language, that things were not good. But no one was willing to talk about what they were feeling. And finally, because the principal was in there and someone figured I'd better volunteer, someone raised his hand and said, I feel satisfied. And was like, wow, okay, that's interesting. And no other emotions went up. So if you want to have your students be aware of their emotions, there has to be conversation about emotions, and then why you're feeling the way you're feeling and what you can do about it. So how do emotions shape and sometimes inhibit our thinking? Emotions have power over thought, but then thought can have power over emotions if you concentrate on how you want to, if you identify your emotions and you think about how you want to work with those emotions. If you ignore the emotions, they're going to blindside you. They act as filters to form our desires, furnish our capacities, and to a large extent, rule our immediate thoughts. And if you're in flight or fight mode, you can't really think. So he recommends 4 steps that can help you work with your emotions. Recognize your immediate emotional response. And I'm going to ask you, as you're working this week, think about your learning disposition and the connection of that disposition to your emotions. Challenge your automatic response. So if your automatic response is to shut down when someone starts talking, challenge that response, right? You can challenge your own behavior. Develop an awareness of opportunities for effective thinking. So where can I think effectively? And you can act your way into a new way of believing. So if your belief is, I'm no good at algebra, how do you actually change that belief? Because nobody can change it for you. You have to work on it yourself.